Well, hello and welcome back to my orchid life. So a couple of months ago, I did a video on why we have stressed orchids. So I thought today I would do a little update on some of my stressed orchids. This is not all of my stressed orchids, guys. This is just an example of some of them. Majority of my stressed orchids, believe it or not, are not phalaenopsis. I've got that care fairly down pat, not perfected it, but most of my stressed orchids are non-phalaenopsis orchids. Let me put my coffee down, hold on. All right, so if my voice gets a little weird, it's I have my windows open and my allergies are really acting up, so I took an allergy pill, but I don't know how that's helping. In any event, let's start with our Brassavola cucullata. She's supposed to be the yellow variation. So I put her in this hanging basket. Let's see, on the 12th of August. Here, I'll even turn it around and show you guys. So I do date, month, and then year. For those of you who are in the United States, I know generally it's month, date, year, but I grew up with day, month, year. So this way you can kind of understand. But anyway, side note there. When I repotted her into this here, just as a reminder, there is a, I don't know if you can kind of see it, it's a clay saucer at the bottom, and then there's just bark, and then I've got some moss in the corners. We could barely see this new growth right here, and in less than a month, today is the 10th of September, so okay, I guess right at a month, 2 days away, still less than a month, this is what she's done. These here, the ones that she already had when she came to me, have perked up, as well as this growth here, which was the last growth that she did prior to this one, has also grown a wee bit. So I think by taking her out of that heavy moss mix that I had her in, now she is happy in this all bark, and it's all large bark. Like I said, with just a little bit of moss in the corners to help with humidity. I think the mistake I made, and the reason she was so stressed, is because I was keeping her too wet. As a Brassavola, she does like the wet dry cycle. I had read that, but I thought, well, she's young, she only has a couple of roots, let me help her out. Nope, she said nope. Ever since I put her in this, she has just taken off. And I've had her since the beginning of the year. I've had her since the 14th of January. And this is the most growth, or the quickest growth, I should say, because the most growth is this one growth, but the quickest growth since I've gotten her. She still hangs in her east-facing window. I do water her about every 3 days. It seems to be working out. I have started adding fertilizer now that she has that new growth that's really pushing out. And I did see some new roots coming out. I don't want to disturb her too much because I don't want to mess it up. So that is what is going on with our cucullata. Then we have Miss Wendy here. So Miss Wendy, when I got her, was this beautiful, beautiful peach, large flowered phalaenopsis. As you can see, she's supposed to have nice big leaves. Well, I'm not sure what happened to her, but after her blooming, she attempted this tiny leaf here, and then she did nothing, absolutely nothing. Well, in the last, let's see, I put her in this setup back in May, on the 7th of May. So since the 7th of May, she has produced 3 leaves. Are they this? No, but as you can see, each one is either the same size as the previous, or this one is actually just a wee bit larger than this one. So she is on the road to recovery. I do not see roots in the pot on the outside quite yet, but these leaves here are nice and stiff. These here will never stiffen up again, I don't think, until she gets a lot of roots. And I think by that time, she's probably going to have dropped them. Again, kind of changed her setup. I just have her in a small bark mix with some extra aeration holes. I did have her in a pot without aeration holes. The other day when we were talking about pots, sometimes if you have one in a pot without aeration holes, maybe it's one that needs it. And so I feel like she's one that needs it, because since I put her in the one with the aeration holes, and she's still in a decorative pot, so it doesn't dry out too quick. It dries out a little bit quicker than it did, and I think that is helping her quite a bit. This is one of the 3 rescues that came in the same basket. And she's actually the one that was the worst off, so I thought I'd show this one instead of one of the other two. So when I initially put her in this pot, all she had was this leaf right here. And this leaf has never really gotten dry and dehydrated, which is really weird because she had one root when I put her in there. She attempted to grow this leaf right here. And then of course it's a stress leaf, so it didn't grow very, very long. Then she did try to grow another leaf right here that you can kind of see behind the stick, but it didn't really, it only grew to probably about, let's use my fingernail, about the size of my fingernail. And then this one started pushing out, but it was all curled up and stuck. So me being the helper that I am, decided I would help her out, and it ended up breaking off the leaf itself, but this one continued to grow. Okay, so this is the third leaf of recovery. Look at the size of it. Okay, it is almost the same length as this one. Now it's not as wide, obviously, she's still recovering, but the length, so she is almost fully recovered. I don't see a new leaf growing. However, she does have roots now going down into the pot on both sides, as well as some on the top. And then I noticed today that she's got this root right here getting ready to go through. And when I saw that, you know what I was thinking? These leaves are really thick. Can you imagine how strong these roots are in order to push through that thick leaf just to get out? Talk about wanting to survive. All right, let me move her out of the way. Sorry, I have a lot of side notes, I think, today. Now, this is the Wilsonara Martian Leather Berrylicious. Let me take my tag out. So I got her in May of 2020. I repotted her in December of 2020. And when I got her, this back bulb here, she actually had 3 bulbs. One of them dried out. It was a small seedling bulb. And then there was another bulb that got really mushy and rotted. So I did an emergency repot. I'll post the video somewhere up in here if you want to go look at that when you're done watching this one. This growth and this growth were itty bitty. You could barely see them. This one here was probably looked similar to this one here that's behind the stick, a little smaller. And then what she is in is primarily moss and bark. And this I just watered, so they're all gonna look really wet. This one is the one that I learned in my environment Oncidium types like the bark heavy moss mix, because shortly after I put her in here, she was producing some roots. These new growths took off, and this growth actually kind of grew some more and swelled a little bit. It never finished, so it probably never will, but these are continuing to grow. And let me move some of the moss here. And as you can see, she has some roots going down in the pot, and you can actually see roots also inside the pot. So she is probably not going to bloom off either one of these new growths, but she is on the road to recovery, and she was under stress for a long time. I put her in, let's see, what was this? In January of 2021, when she was put in here, she had absolutely no roots at all. So she's really taken off. I'd lie, she had 1 root, which is really no roots because it was only about that long. But she's taken off and doing rather well. Then we have my Epidendrum cattleya. She was such a beautiful, healthy looking plant when I got her. She bloomed. She started on this new growth right here and this new growth right here. And then nothing. This growth here is growing roots, as well as we have a new growth down in there. Can you see it? Let me see if I can move some of that out of the way. But it's right there next to my finger. And so she's on the road to recovery. This one here will probably finish because she's still nice and stiff and still growing. But this one, I don't think that I think she's just there. She's not going to go any further. But the roots are starting to extend down into the pot. I don't see any, sorry about that. That's my little pupper supervisor letting me know that someone was at the door, probably the mailman. I don't see any roots down in the pot itself quite yet, but the canes are starting to swell back up. So hopefully she will recover because she's got some really pretty blooms. Then let's talk about Deja. So this is my no ID phalaenopsis Deja. This is the one that I attempted to put on a seagrass mount because I thought it looked really cool. Still think it would have looked really cool. She just didn't want to be on there. So again, I'll post the video of when I put her on the mount and then when we had to take her off because we had to do an emergency repot because she was going downhill fast. Well, then I put her in this setup here. It's got a lot of bark in there, and I do have a little bit of moss in there as well because she did have a few roots. And since then, she just started putting out this new leaf. So she's been in here since May, just sitting here, and about 3 weeks ago, she decided she was going to start this leaf. This leaf probably won't get that long because it is a stress leaf. And just for those of you who are new to growing orchids, generally your first growth after a stressful event to the orchid, whether it's a repot, whether they lost half of their structure, whatever stress, 99% of the time the next growth is not going to be as mature or large or long or thick or whatever as the previous. Sometimes they are, but 99% of the time they aren't. So I don't really expect this one to get too long. However, her leaves are nice and thick, and they're always going to have this droopy look to them simply because she was so dehydrated. These were just flopped down. So another thing to note is once your orchids, let me grab Wendy here. Once your orchids get really dehydrated and get these wrinkles in their leaf, even after they hydrate and plump back up, those wrinkles will always be there. That look will always be there because those cells in those leaves have been damaged. So it can't recover that. Let's talk about this Dendrobium phalaenopsis. So this is a back piece of the Dendrobium phalaenopsis that we are waiting for to open up all the blooms. And for those of you who follow me on Instagram, you can go to Instagram. I've got a picture of the blooms. I'll be showing you guys those later on, either this week, sometime this month I'll show you the blooms. But you can get a sneak peek if you want to go check it out on my Instagram, and you can find the channel in the description below. This one here was struggling, doing nothing. All it had was this growth, which is the one growth it did for me, and then this back cane here. So I put it into LECA, took it out of LECA. It started this new growth. So she's been in the LECA since June. She started the growth in the LECA in June. Look at the roots coming out of that lady. Oh my goodness. And they are going down into the LECA. You can't see them on the outside yet. Some of the roots that were in there are desiccated, but that's okay. As I flush those, it'll get washed out. But the best part is, if you look really, really close, right down there, I have roots growing off of the old cane here. So I'm wondering if she's going to go ahead and shoot me out a new growth as well. Wouldn't that be great? But the key is experiment. That's kind of the point I'm trying to make here, especially when you have a stressed orchid. But again, you want to allow it time, whatever you do, to work. So like I said, she's been in here since June. It is now September, so July, August, and September, so it's been 3 months. She's fine.